Jacob Reese Mogg of your parish, making a tear-stained plea on GB News for people not to abandon the Labour Party. How much the country needs the Labour Party. I scratch my head in utter bewilderment, I must tell you.
Bear with me, George. Tom Bewick, do you scratch your head in bewilderment? What do you make of the changes that are indicated, that are evidenced by Mr. Galloway's success in Rochdale, and as he says, the possibility now of an alternative to the two cheeks of the same backside?
Like a lot of ordinary voters, I'm scratching my head at just the degree of polarisation now that exists in our society. And yes, Labour and the Conservative Party need to take some responsibility for that kind of climate. But at the end of the day, we've also seen now elected to our mother of all parliaments, politicians who, depending on your point of view, George Galloway won the election, congratulations, but to some people he's a demagogue, and the definition of a demagogue is someone who appeals to prejudice rather than rational argument. So my retort...
Look, little man, and I don't really like using that term, but, what other terms are there to use other than why talk bullshit? So, let's just check out now. Check this out now. So, demagogue. This is what Google, by the way, this is Bezos, Zuckerberg, Neil Mohan style, CIA hacked Google. Demagogue. A political leader who seeks support by appealing to the desires and prejudices of ordinary people rather than by using rational argument. A gifted demagogue with particular skills in manipulating the press. Rhetorical exploit, an issue for political purposes in a way calculated to appeal to the desires and prejudices of ordinary people. Seems more interested in demagoguing the issue in the media interviews than in dialogue. Right, where's this being pulled from, can I ask? Can I ask where this has been pulled from? Right? The real meaning of the word demagogue, the actual, real, true meaning in the language of a human being of the word demagogue. Webster's Dictionary, 1827. A leader of the political, a leader of the people, an orator who pleases the populace and influences them to adhere to him. Any leader of the populace, any factious man who is influenced with a greater body of people in a city or community. So it actually just means a political leader who gets the adoration of the public and influences them to follow him. So literally just a political leader. Well, so that is what any politician does, particularly if they're a leader of a political party. So that would mean that Rishi Sunak was, and he tries to get them to follow Labour and, the Tories, and Starmer gets people to follow Labour. So it basically just means a political leader. Now, so it just basically means a political leader who gets people to follow them, influences people, which is the whole point in politics, unless you're an independent, and your local people are just basically trying to get their influence on the political leader, which is the whole point in voting and having a surgery. If you have every single political party in this country tries to get the people to adhere to its policies and follow it, rather than you turn up and give objections to councils, or give your input in a surgery, or you vote in a referendum, or you sign petitions. When you have an elected member of the council who is in the policy for employment on the council is meant to act selflessly, that means that they can't act with their own opinion. That means that they have to act on behalf of the people who elected them. That means that if they sign petitions or answer to public consultations, or to sign petitions, then you got to comply with the majority and act on the behalf of the majority. Or if there is no anyone else concerned about anything, if one or two people come up and they want a new park bench and no one objects to it, then that's what they want. But you're not meant to act purely on your own opinion. So you can't be a demagogue if you're an elected councillor, because it's against the policy. And supposedly not as an MP really either, but you wouldn't believe that on the basis of political parties, because a political party does act demagogic. In fact, that is the point of a political party. It has its own views and opinions and policies, and it tries to get other people to subscribe to them. So that means that actually Starmer and Sunak are equally as demagogic as Galloway with his Workers' Party. It just basically means that the true meaning of the word and term is actually a political leader. Someone who wants to get the people to, persuade them on one political way or another. So actually, the term they've got here is actually perverted, and it's wrong. All of this criteria, how a demagogue, all this business of playing to prejudices and so forth, or differentiating that between a rational argument. Well, it doesn't matter what argument you put, as long as you get people persuaded. This is wrong, because it's irrelevant what ways, means, or methods are used to persuade, as long as they are persuaded to the opinion en masse, and it is under the subject of politics. The running of the country or communities and so forth. So,
your head in bewilderment. What do you make of the changes that are indicated, that are evidenced by Mr. Galloway's success in Rochdale, and, as he says, the possibility now of an alternative to the.
So this idiot, I'm guessing he's being paid to appear on GB News. He's likely not getting paid as much money as Jacob Reese Mogg to appear on GB News, but this guy surely is under employment. Now, this is a professional expert in media who dares to appear on television in front of the entire country and quote language and words that is false, wrong. Yet Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, and Joe Biden, the President of America, want to ban television programmes that give misinformation. They want to ban them from being broadcast. They want to take them down, take YouTube channels down, take Twitter accounts down. Yet, Jacob Reese Mogg is already on GB News illegally, unlawfully, as a MP, self-promoting for his own popularity in election. And here is another highly paid, probably gets thousands, probably nearly on as much as Jacob Reese Mogg, on GB News. It's meant to be a new national programme, yet he hasn't even looked up the meaning of the words in the dictionary of what he's using, possibly even helping to pervert the course of language and meaning on television, perverting language so then people don't know the true meaning of words. In fact, this guy is engaging here in GB News, acting as a demagogue to get people, the whole country and nation, to believe that the term demagogue means something that it doesn't. And that is divisive in language. Basically, he's getting the dictionary, pulling words out of it, and he's perverting the course of the meaning of words. Now, if that isn't divisive, I don't know what is. You might as well get a lot of people and say that green's blue and blue's green. That's divisive. If you tell everyone who likes blue to stand on the left of the room, and everyone who likes red to stand on the right of the room, and then everyone who likes blue stands on the right of the room, that's divisive. So, how can a person in England with a professional introduction and title be broadcast to the public when he is lying about the meaning of a word in the dictionary to the public to make them not even know what is being talked about, and then he's accusing the interviewer, the guest who's been interviewed, George Galloway, of being a demagogue. Now, men like this need to be sued by Ofcom or banned from television. Men like this need to be removed from television and not allowed to be put in front of a camera. They need to be banned from appearing on national television. They need to be banned from broadcasting to the public because they are a danger to the public. This man is dangerous to the public of England because he doesn't know what he's saying. He doesn't know what he's saying or talking about. He's running on pure courage, pure balls. No one in the right mind would dare to appear in front of England and humiliate themselves so much as a man so blind as this man. But yet they do it, and the damage that they're causing not only to people but the country, the recklessness of their language is devastating to the country. And as for divisive,
two cheeks of the same backside.
Like a lot of ordinary voters, I'm scratching my head at just the degree of polarisation now.
But you haven't got a degree, have you? Because you don't even know what words mean when you're using them. In fact, you are helping to pervert the language.
Exists in our society. And yes, Labour and the Conservative Party need to take some responsibility for that.
But why don't you? Responsibility. It took me about 30 seconds to check up in the dictionary to confirm what I already knew. I knew that demagogue just means a political figure who gets people to follow them. Yet now you're trying to say that, it's a demagogue is someone who does it through a certain way. That means Galloway is one of these people, but none of the other politicians are. Yet Sunak and Starmer both try to control the masses to their political party ends, which is demagogue. So why talk bullshit? Why appear in front of all England and talk utter bollocks? Why do it? I'm complaining to the Judicial Conduct Investigation Office at the moment. I've got about 10 cases to Lady Chief Justice because of the behaviour and conduct of judges in courtrooms in live cases when people are being sent to prison. And you are on television and normal people are getting their channels taken down, right? When you are going on GB News talking absolute bullshit. Bullshit!
Kind of climate. But at the end of the day, we've also seeing now elected to our mother of all parliaments, politicians who, depending on your point of view, I mean, George Galloway won the election, congratulations, but to some people he's a demagogue, and the definition of a demagogue is someone who appeals to prejudice rather than rational.
Why lie? Why lie? Why talk bullshit? Because every single political party is the same, and George Galloway is no different. You're trying to make out that he's different, Why bullshit?
Argument. So my retort back to George Galloway is, in terms of his politics going forward, is he going to be a unifier, or is he going to continue to be a divisive force in British politics?
What? I've never heard as much bullshit in my entire life. Right, in Parliament, when they could be bothered having one and calling people in to be elected, right, was on rare occasion. And they had ministers and we could elect them and they represent the people, and then it dissolved. And they had them on every certain number of years. And then they had a long parliament, right? Now, the ministers who were, well, the MPs who became ministers, right? They're in the government and they're in charge of the government, right? Now, they were referred to as the court party. They were the court party because they were the ones who were the ministers, the ministry, right? And they were in charge of the government with the king. Now, the rest of the the MPs, the members of parliament, were the opposition to the ministry, to the ministers. So it was actually the ministry, the ministers, the court party against the opposition, which was the other members, until they started forming political parties, right? Now, the way they have parliament now is that you have Starmer on one side and Sunak on the other side, and they're in parliament, but it's an opposition. You couldn't be more divisive in the first place than forming political parties and have them opposing each other. There's nothing more divisive. Well, there's nothing more divisive, firstly, than having some members of parliament are ministers and some people aren't. And then further divide it even more by forming political parties where you have members and the word opposition. To have an opposition is to have an opponent, and that you are only coming together to oppose each other. So the current design of parliament couldn't be more divisive. It's split down the middle of the chamber. So the concept of what you're saying is just tosh. You're trying to make out that Galloway is somehow more divisive than, Labour and the Tories. It's and then you've got two chambers divided, commoners and peers, lords. There is no one more divisive than the whole point of having rich people and poor people. That's divisive. The whole existence of Sunak and the Tories is divisive because you're dividing rich and poor. The whole concept of having workers and a boss is divisive. The mind boggles at this man. I would be embarrassed. I would not be able to sit there. This is why some people just want to get on with their own life. When you get idiots like this who pop their head up on television and talk utter, absolute, complete tosh, then you wonder why the state of the country is as it is. He needs sacking, he needs banning, and we need Ofcom to intervene with these people in every single word they're scrutinising. Because I don't even back Joe Biden when he's saying that, we need to ban, misinformation. But when you get these people coming on to programmes like GB News, no one, Andy the Gabby Cabby does no harm to anyone, no matter what his opinion is. Neither does, Matt Hardy Blade Runner. Neither does anyone who just has their own YouTube channel, because, it's not dangerous until you start getting, GB News. I mean, they haven't even got 2 million people on GB News. I mean, it's not even a third of what Russell Brand's got, right? People watching him. And he's got to watch what he says. Why has Russell Brand got always going on about, we'll have to go over to Rumble now, we can't talk about this or that, when we've got GB News that he's probably not... Well, Russell Brand, firstly, he's been demonetised. I don't know where GB News are getting their money from. Private sponsors, business, corporate entities.
George, do you see yourself? What is your reaction to being marked as a divisive figure in Britain?
Well, Galloway didn't have an answer for him, so I filled it in for him. And then we'll go on to this other part as well. Where's this other part? Galloway didn't have much to say. He didn't want to answer him. I'll answer for him. I'm not bothered. I'll answer for the cunt. He comes back on in a minute. Oh, here we go.
Probably wouldn't have have if the by-election had been in, I don't know, the home counties somewhere. But in Rochdale, in the northwest, in Greater Manchester, where I already knew I had a lot of support, yes, I probably would.
George, Tom, someone does have to speak up for Gaza and the Gazans. You know, you use the word demagogue, you use the word divisive, but surely it is true to say that with 30,000 dead, 100,000 people in total dead or wounded or lost in the rubble, someone is right to speak up for Gaza.
And I accept George Galloway can speak up for whoever he likes. He's now an elected member of Parliament. But with that comes a lot of responsibility. It comes, for example, not just for the constituents of Rochdale, but in terms of taking part in our national debates, that we don't further tensions, sectarianism, or indeed...
Tom Bewick. This is the guy's name. Tom Bewick.
...promote the idea that we should be even electing factions based on religious grounds to Parliament.
We shouldn't be debating factions of religious grounds where people who've been elected to Parliament. Look, Bewick, right? Unless you are completely and utterly, totally misinformed about the entire history of England and Parliament, the entire facts and circumstances which led into major historic events in this Parliament, particularly through the 1640s, leading to the actual civil war of England and the removal of the monarch, is based around religious factions and religious arguments. In fact, so much to say as that one of the most important and landmark legislations ever to be enacted in the history of the world, the 1688 Bill of Rights, only exists, is based on, and the political rights, mainly because of a religious faction, an argument, particularly when it comes to John Beswick and Henry Burton. And to add insult to injury, I think they know that, and this is why they've got Tom Bewick in here, Tom Bewick. Now, if he doesn't even know the story of John Beswick and and Henry Burton, who actually had their ears cut off because of their religious points of view, which is one of the main prosecution cases in England. You know, the whole Court of High Commission and Star Chamber petitioning the King, and then the wives petitioning for the release from prison with John Pym in Parliament. That is historically one of the main debatable subjects of Parliament, and to resolve religious disagreements. Bewick, my mind's just like boom. Bewick is just like he's off the chart in dumb. There's dumb and there's dumb, but this guy, he's likely been to journalist college. He probably goes for cups of coffee. I don't know who he sits with. I don't know who he talks to. I don't know what people he hangs around with. Probably, people from the Sun newspaper, Trinity. These are idiots, editors from newspapers, columnists, Johnson, cartoonists. These, how do you end up in a job on media with balls like that? The big, big balls. Bewick, you talk shit. You actually talk complete and utter bollocks to the country. It's spam. You're sat in a studio getting paid money with zeros behind it to not only misinform England, but you actually do not have a clue what the fuck you are actually talking about, Bewick. You're actually talking bollocks. You wouldn't get a job. You wouldn't get a job for 5p, let alone £500, Bewick. I would not employ you to go remotely near a camera or microphone in this country, you would be banned from speaking publicly, let alone being a demagogue, Bewick. You need to go and get a job in a cafe serving coffee as a barrister with middle-aged women. You need to stay away from social media and broadcasting because you are a danger to the public, Bewick.
How about that, George?